How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your February 2019 horoscope for Virgo, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and watching and liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. This month is definitely going to be a little bit different. I shouldn't say a little bit. It's definitely going to have a way different theme than last month did. When you had Venus in your 4th house and the eclipses in your 5th house. Now we have the Sun and Mercury going into your 6th house, and Mercury is going to be going into your 7th house, and Venus is going to be going to your 5th house. A lot of the theme really focuses on relationships and love this month, as well as what your work habits are and what your everyday routine is. So let's go ahead and get into the horoscope. The first thing that's really going on in February is February 3rd, we have Venus going into Capricorn, where Venus is planet of value and love and relationships. She wants to bring things together. She wants to synthesize things, and she really enjoys that. She's going into the sign of Capricorn, where she finds the value and the joy of following the rules, of being disciplined, of having some type of structure and order, and being very serious about things in a sense. Venus going into Capricorn means she's going into your 5th house of love, of romance, of sex, of children, of arts and creativity and music and things of that nature. Especially children. Venus going into 5th house, you're definitely going to, the theme of children are definitely predominant. However, as Venus goes into Capricorn, you're definitely going to be feeling more of the vibe of what is really working in relationships as far as what love and romance, that kind of feeling. Where do you want to place that value? Where do you really want to seek that? How do you have to be serious about gaining that? As Saturn's going through that area and you had the eclipses, the 5th house area of, love and romance is definitely bringing you limitations, finding, there's building up walls, there's barriers around this area. Venus going into Capricorn is like, let's take this area seriously. Let's go, how can we handle these things? How can we address these things in a more efficient and effective manner that's really going to bring more of the love and the funner stuff out of this? And we'll be talking more about that as we go on. However, the next day on February 4th, we have the new moon in Aquarius. So as we have the sun going through Aquarius, we have this new moon here. This is happening in your 6th house, where the 6th house is all about your work, your routine, your daily habits, your health, your sense of service to this world. It also has a lot to do with things breaking and falling apart. That's why it has to do with your health. The 6th house really isn't the best house. However, this new moon is basically cleaning up an area. It's putting both the luminaries, both the lights on one area. It's focusing on that. This is about going, hey, Aquarius is kind of like detachment, isolation, alienation, has to do with connecting the dots and seeing a bigger scope of things. It is a Saturn-ruled sign where it's about, creating structures. It's about having authority. It's about one of my really, I had him on my show, Nate Craddock. He talks about Aquarius being like the spirit of the law, and it's like such a good way to put it is the spirit of Saturn. It's kind of like, this is why we're disciplining in ourselves. This is why we're seeing things in a different way. We put in the hard work so we can create these amazing results. So this new moon is really helping you guys with resetting intentions towards your work ethic, towards what you're doing every single day in your habits. This is kind of going, hey, where do I need to detach from the old, and where do I need to implement the new perspective in? So that's going to be really good. Then we move on about a week later, not a whole lot happens until February 10th, as we have Mercury going into Pisces. So Mercury was in your 6th house, doing a lot more, again, with work stuff, everyday habits and whatnot. As Mercury goes into your 7th house, it's going into detriment. Mercury doesn't work really well in Pisces. Mercury wants to be able to have a clear and concise message, either in written form or verbally communicated. And that's that Gemini-Virgo relationship. However, Mercury in Pisces is definitely like communication, things of that nature. You guys are Virgo rising, so you're very much ruled by Mercury. However, Mercury in Pisces, it's like the message has to be kind of brought up on the spot. Mercury has to really play around with its environment to understand how it's going to communicate. And this is going into your 7th house of relationships. So even though the 5th house is like love and romance and sex and all those fun things, the 7th house is like the other person. The 7th house is the relationship. And as you have Mercury going into Pisces, where it's going to later retrograde, which we'll be talking about, Mercury going into your 7th house is like the theme around relationships and communication between it is going to get a little bit foggy. You're going to have to learn how to communicate and be more expressive of how you feel in that moment without blowing it out of proportion, without being too confusing, trying to be as clear and concise as possible. However, Mercury going into Pisces in your 7th house, we'll be talking a lot about it, especially this month and next month. It's just going to be a little bit weird. So then a couple days later, we have on February 13th, we have Mars conjoining Uranus for its last time in Aries. And this is happening in your 8th house. And the 8th house is all about, you know, death and transformation. It has to do with taxes and debts and inheritances, other people's money and resources and things of that nature. And as Mars is going through your 8th house, it could be like, you know, resources or inheritances or, you know, taxes. That stuff's bringing you issues and conflict and problems. This is Mars that we're talking about. Mars brings severing and cutting and inflammation. And as he's in this 8th house, you could be dealing with problems in that area, especially with Uranus making that area just extreme ups and downs. As Mars hits Uranus, expect an extreme up and down in this area. You know, Uranus is breakthroughs or breakdowns, and Mars is cutting. Mars is putting action onto things in this 8th house area. So definitely expect the unexpected when it comes to, you know, maybe if you're in a relationship, your partner's money or other people's resources. Maybe this has to do with taxes because tax season's coming up for you guys. This is going to be definitely something to look at. So pay attention to Mars going on top of Aries and Uranus, or on top of Uranus and Aries. The next day, though, on February 14th, on Valentine's Day, Mars goes into Taurus, where Mars finds himself in detriment in Taurus. Mars wants to be in Aries and Scorpio. He wants to act or he wants to kill. Like, he wants to be focused. He wants to have drive and tenacity. And as Mars is in Taurus, it's like, you know, Mars doesn't have that energy. Mars can find himself to be stagnated. Taurus is a fixed sign where things don't really change. And Mars in Taurus is kind of like a bull sitting down in the grass. Like, it's not moving anywhere unless it really wants to. And that's a key theme with Mars being in Taurus, is taking action on the things that value most to you. As Mars is in Taurus, it's going to be causing you problems and maybe some anger around, you know, not having the energy, not having the drive, not wanting to go out of your way. But the biggest thing is that Mars is going to be going through your 9th house. And the 9th house is all about spirituality, religion, beliefs, higher education, publishing. Has to do with foreign languages and far distance travel. And so as Mars is going through this area, it could be like, man, if you're trying to learn something new, or even like your sense of spirituality and religion could just be causing you some issues right now where it feels stagnant and that it's not going anywhere. The big thing is with Mars and Taurus is take action on the things that do bring you value, and don't be afraid to take that action. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, although you're going to feel a little bit more inclined to be a little bit more lazier this month than normal. So as we move forward, a couple days later, on February 16th, we have Venus sextiling Neptune. So Venus is in Capricorn again, where it's kind of like, hey, you know, like if you want to have some more fun, if you want to bring some more love and passion into your life and with your hobbies, like it's time to do that. It's time to it's time to do the work for that. As Venus sextiles Neptune, this is really helping you in that area of like love and romance and relationships, where it's like, hey, maybe if you just applied yourself a little bit more and be a little bit more disciplined, have more boundaries, have more rules, and have more structure in the sense of how you love and how you receive and give that. Venus is sextiling Neptune, where Neptune's creating, you know, a lot of illusion on relationships at this moment. So Venus sextiling that is maybe giving, I don't want to say maybe, it's definitely giving a little bit more of a clearer picture and a clearer scope of, hey, if I do these things this way, this relationship's going to be a little bit more contrasted in a better light. Things are going to be a little bit more soothing in a sense. So that is really good. It's not the biggest deal in the world. We got a couple sextiles this month that aren't, again, the biggest thing, but it is definitely going to be constructive. The next day, though, on February 17th, we have Venus conjoining Saturn in your 5th house, where Saturn is in your 5th house. He's in Capricorn. He's bringing walls, he's bringing limitations, and he's showing you the problems in your infrastructure around 5th house things of children, of love, sex, hobbies, and creativity, and the things that you're passionate about. And as Venus goes on top of Saturn, this is where it's going to feel a little bit cold and cruel in the sense of, like, you know, Saturn's basically holding Venus in her arms. However, Venus doesn't mind being in Saturn's arms. Venus is like, this is pretty much okay at the moment. This is Capricorn. She doesn't really mind a lot of Saturn stuff. And as Venus is here on top of Saturn, this is really about going, what walls work and what walls don't work? What structure, what rules are working and what are not working? Which ones do I want to apply more? How is following the rules helping you? It's kind of like, wow, Saturn, even though can be causing you some problems, is actually trying to help you get your shit together. So Venus on top of Saturn is like, man, committing to the things that you love, committing to the things that you want to do, and finding that way of, I guess, I don't want to keep saying commitment, but it's like Saturn right there in that 5th house area. It's like, what do you want? What's holding you back from it? And Venus is kind of like, you know, where do I need to apply myself? Where do I need to apply this Saturn stuff and be more disciplined in this area? And how can you find joy in that? Like, where can that really bring you some benefits and some results in your life? So that's going to be a big deal. However, the next day, on February 18th, it's kind of like one of the big days of February. It's basically, we have a couple things going on. Mercury's going to conjoin Neptune, where Mercury's kind of projecting that message of Neptune, of duality, of confusion, of uncertainty, but very spiritual connection, very omniscient energy going on with the 7th house of relationships. So as Mercury goes on top of Neptune, expect things to be very foggy, but also things can be very black and white and very realistic. Mercury also enters shadow on this day, where Mercury's going to later retrograde in Pisces, and he will go direct again at this degree on top of Neptune. So with whatever you experience during this time, with Mercury going on top of Neptune, and that miscommunication around relationships, things aren't clear in relationships, things are definitely foggy and up in the air with relationships. Expect this to go on for the next couple weeks as you kind of reevaluate and relook at the way that you communicate and your ideas around relationships, especially beliefs around relationships. Now, on February 18th, Chiron also enters Aries, where Chiron finally gets out of your 7th house of Pisces and goes into your 8th house of where we're talking about, death, transformation, other people's money, resources, things like that. I did a whole video about Chiron and Aries. Make sure you guys check that out. I'll definitely connect the dots more on that. However, on the 18th as well, the sun goes into Pisces. So Pisces season begins. It's your unbirthday, 6 more months till your birthday. And as the sun goes into Pisces, it's just the luminary, a light bringing attention to the 7th house of relationships. What are you working with? What's the environment of relationships? It's a big sun in Pisces thing, so be sure to take note of that. However, the next day, though, on the 19th, we have the full moon in Virgo. So this full moon in Virgo is happening in your first house, like right after the sun goes into Pisces, right as Mercury's entering shadow and conjoining Neptune in your 7th house. And this full moon in Virgo is going, what do you need to realize about yourself and who you are and what you want that you can apply within the idea of relationships? Full moon in Virgo is like the full moon is just bringing light to things that don't always get light. It's, it constantly changes. The moon goes either dark or it's lit up, and this is just bringing a light to things. And this is in your first house of your sense of self, of your personality, of your body, of your health. This is about who you are. And this full moon in Virgo is kind of bringing illumination of like, hey, where do you need to realize what you are? You're a Virgo rising. We're in Pisces season too, where things can be foggy. You need some clarity. You need to be like, whoa, who am I? What do I want? What do things really look like? And how can you integrate that in relationships? So that full moon in Virgo is definitely going to be bringing a lot more of like, whoa, energy to you. Kind of like realizing a lot more, being a lot more clear about things. Mercury also sextiles Saturn on the 19th with the full moon in Virgo. So as Mercury sextiling Saturn, this is really, communicating the right message. Like, even though Mercury in Pisces doesn't know exactly what to say, Saturn's being like, hey, focus again on what do you want, building structure and disciplining yourself on that 5th house stuff and communicating from that space. So that's going to be a big deal. However, moving on a couple days later, February 22nd is the next big thing, is when we have Venus conjoining Pluto. Now, Pluto's been going through your 5th house for quite some time, so that's definitely bringing an underlying tone of, destruction and chaos, if you want to put it that way, to the sense of love and romance, sex, children, kids, all of that 5th house stuff. And Venus is going on top of Pluto going, this sucked, but I need to put some love into this area. Where can I really find the value in what has happened? I've been making an analogy of like, it's kind of like, even though everything is burned down to the ground, that's creating very fertile soil for you to plant seeds that are going to grow into healthy plants. So as Venus goes on top of Pluto, this is a big time to look at this 5th house area and go, yeah, shit's been bad before, but now we're ready to, put the seeds where we need to. It's time to grow. It's time to go, this isn't bad anymore. We're in the process of changing that. Mercury is also going to square Jupiter that day, where Jupiter's in your 4th house, where it's bringing good things and whatnot to, your home life, your family life, your parents. That's a good area. But as Mercury's squaring Jupiter and Pisces, Mercury's in Pisces squaring Jupiter and Sagittarius, this is going to be a miscommunication in this area. So, the 7th house is not only relationships on like a romantic level, like committed relationships, but this is just one-on-one people in general. So maybe you have a miscommunication with roommates or miscommunication with your family. Expect something around this theme of miscommunication with people appearing around this time, especially with the theme of the 4th house going on. So be aware of that. However, the last 2 things that go on in February is on February 25th, we have Venus conjoining the South Node in Capricorn. So as the South Node's going in Capricorn through your 5th house, this is more of a longer thing, and this is the theme of the eclipses, is like, dude, what needs to change in that area of love and romance and children and pleasure and the fun stuff? Like, what do you need to stray away from? What doesn't work anymore? And as Venus goes on top of the South Node, this is really going, this doesn't, like, these results aren't, I'm not getting a return on investment on this. It's time to move on from this. Venus is also looking at the South Node going, what has worked in my past? How can I, where have I found, you know, the beauty and the positivity and structure and rules and discipline, and how have I done that in the past, and how can I really let that help me right now in this moment? So Venus on top of the South Node, expect things to be a little bit funky and weird. This is, you know, South Node energy is just weird in general. But this is definitely going to be a time to look at what do you want to stray away from? What needs to just get wrapped up and closed up? And as Venus goes over there, it's kind of like, all right, like, I see the value, I understand it, I understand what's going on in my past, I understand what I need to stray away from so I can more effectively change. Mercury also squares, no, I already talked about Mercury squared Jupiter. The last thing is on February 27th, we have Mercury sextiling Venus. Mercury's in, you know, Venus is in Capricorn, where she's like, hey, I'm really enjoying these things, I'm really liking this stuff right here. Mercury sextiling Venus, where this is kind of helping and mitigating that miscommunication stuff that's going on in your relationships. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it is definitely something that is on a positive end when it comes to love and relationships and the communication between that. So with that being said, that's what I got for you guys. That's your horoscope. That's what's going on for you guys this month. So thank you guys so much for liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. Love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be seeing you guys next month.